I am making brunch for myself, my husband, and my son. We all live here in the same house. I have a daughter, but she's away at college. So here's how it works. My husband is a full-time content creator and he works upstairs from home in his office. And my son is a full-time content creator and he works downstairs in his like apartment type space and he lives here full time. And so that's what they do. Now, let me warn you, if you're one of those cooks who likes recipes and exact measurements, I'm about to frustrate the pants off of you because I don't actually use recipes, and you can blame my mom for that. So I tend to cook by feel, and today I feel like a weird, unusual meal. So in my mind, I see this flatbread. I have a whisper mill, so I'm going to mill some wheat and use some sourdough starter, or sorry, I'm going to use some sourdough discard that I need to use up. I'm going to make a flatbread. I'm going to make some eggs, and I'm going to use 2 pounds of beef to make, I don't know, kind of like a breakfast sausagey beef. We don't tend to eat pork a lot, but I'm going to use this 2 pounds of beef and season it up with some sage and thyme and whatever else I can throw into it. And then just make it have that kind of breakfasty profile. And let me just, for reference, share with you that it is coming to noon. And this is a very typical thing for us. None of us really eat until like late in the later in the day. Like we break our fast with, my husband and I will tend to break our fast with coffee in the morning. I usually have a cup of coffee with Jesus and we sit and chat and do our thing together and hang out, and we have all the rich conversations. Then after that I usually go to work, but today we're going to work on brunch and I'm going to show you what I have in mind. Now here's the deal. I do not tend to cook breakfast foods. Like I will make eggs, but I will eat. If it's a whole food, I will eat whatever it is on hand. I will have black beans for breakfast. I will have rice for breakfast. I'll have some leftover meatloaf for breakfast. I'll have whatever I choose because as long as it's a whole natural food, I'm going to have it. And I usually try to listen to my body. So you guys know that, maybe you don't know, but I'm the author of God's Perfect Size, and I am dealing with my body in menopause. And for a long time, I was dieting, trying to deny my flesh eating foods and opting for these prepackaged diet foods, trying to help my body jump start of letting go of the weight. It didn't do any of that. I mean, it did for like a second and I lost a few pounds, but then it came back, and then 1 or 2 of those pounds brought a friend. I didn't appreciate that because this was not an open house. But either way, I am, I'm just on my path to listening to God. And here's what I mean. I have been praying about this for a long time, but God has set me free in a way that I don't have to be consumed about what I eat. Let's work and chat. I'm just going to put some fresh herbs into a bowl and start crushing them. My mortar and pestle. This is some sage from my garden. I'll show you here, me picking it this morning, but fresh sage. I don't have a lot of time growing, but what little bit I do have, I can throw into my bowl. And because it's not woody and the leaves are tender and the stems are tender, I can just use all of the pieces that I picked off the end of that plant. Okay, so as I was saying, so God has blessed me in the fact that I realized I was obsessing a little too much. Even in this ministry, I was obsessing a little too much about how I looked and what people would think. Like, what if I gained weight? I'm God's perfect size. What if I gained weight? And that was my concern for a really long time. And I've been since set free. And here's the truth of what the Holy Spirit revealed to me. I was turning this into a form of idolatry. I was trying to stay a certain size so that I could look a certain way to the people who come to my channel. I was placing more importance on my diet, my exercise, my actual physical size. I was placing way more emphasis on that and losing track of the fact that this is ministry. And what I mean is, this is about God's kingdom coming. And if I make this all about my physical self and forget about the important job of spreading the gospel and God's kingdom coming, then what is this for? Like, what is this for? There's no love involved in this. And so for me, God has helped me resolve in myself that I am going to eat healthy, do what I know to do, move my body, and let the rest go. This is not going to be idolatry for me. This is not going to be a form of worship. And if you needed to hear that today to be set free, then be set free, baby. Be set free, because God is good. We have so much more to do than just figure out what we need to eat at every meal and obsess over that, forgetting there are lives out there who don't know Jesus, who are being lost and eternally separated from their Lord and Savior. And so let's just eat real food. Now, what is real food? I consider real food single ingredient food. Can I do it perfectly all the time? Heck no. Heck to the no. I can't do it perfectly every single time, but I am trying my best to live this lifestyle. And just to set that working mom free, let me tell you, I'm just getting back into this. I have been a teacher for over 20 years. And when I went back to work full time, I homeschooled my kids until they were like 5 and 6 years old. And then my husband took over the homeschooling. But I went back to work full time in in the building. And so I couldn't do what I'm doing today. I had to rely on certain foods. I tried to make the best choice I could, or I tried to batch cook on the weekends the best I could, but it wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't anything like it is today. I just didn't have the bandwidth back then, and now I do, so I'm going to embrace it. But if you feel like you just don't have the bandwidth, that's legit. That's legit. That is where you are in life. And sometimes it's about just keeping our heads above water, keeping our family nourished and fed, keeping our sanity intact, and accomplishing what we can accomplish in that day with the help of God. So don't make this into a legalistic thing, because if you do, you're going to miss the whole point of God's mercy, His grace, and His perfect love. So let's move on to, I've been yapping for a long time. I'm going to put a little olive oil in this so I can crush these fresh herbs. And I'm going to put a little salt in, because I feel like when I add a pinch of salt to this, it kind of helps the plant cells break down and release the fragrance and draws out that moisture. So I'm going to crush this up pretty good and then add it to my beef and start letting it season that beef. You can take out all your frustrations right here. Like, just beat the crap out of this. I don't know if I told you, but let me just recap. So there is some fresh sage in here from my garden, some thyme, some rosemary, and a tiny bit of oregano. And I'm just going to use this to put into the beef to flavor it and give it kind of a sausage taste. Is this going to be perfect? No. Well, I'll find a stem cooked down in my beef. Most likely, I always do. But I'm trying to do the best I can just to crush it enough to release all of the oils and the flavor. By the way, I got this, I think, at Home Goods. I don't know, probably like 10 years ago. And I just use it old school style to crush my herbs. When I have dry herbs, I have one of those little electric blenders. But for today, we're using some muscle. I'm going to scrape that down and get all the goodness off, and then get ready to transfer that into the pot with the 2 pounds of ground beef. So this is kind of what I'm looking for, an oily, yummy, delicious smelling paste. And I'm going to add that to my pot of ground beef. And then next we're going to add some of the dry ingredients. I'm scraping every bit, y'all. I want every bit of that in the pot, because I barely had enough herbs as it is. My garden is tiny and she is producing, and I've been leaning heavily on it all summer long, and then drying some. Okay, next up, I'm going to throw in, might sound unusual, but these are the flavor profiles I like. I want it to have a little bit of that yummy taste. I'm going to add a little dill into the ground beef. Little granulated onion powder, probably a full heaping teaspoon of that, maybe teaspoon and a half. I like a lot of seasoning. I do not like bland beef. All right, 2 teaspoons. I said 2 teaspoons of garlic. Maybe today is not date night. I don't know. Or it could be. He might like the smell of garlic. I'm going to add a little black pepper. Some of that. A little red pepper. I'm going to do a couple dashes of that because We like a little bit of heat. So a couple shakes of red pepper and then some pink sea salt. A full teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon and a quarter, and then just give that a mix. So it should look like that. Just give it a mix. Make sure you distribute all of those good herbs all around through your beef. Don't overwork it, but just kind of move it around so that you can distribute and break up the clumps of spices. It smells so good while I'm doing. And then I'm going to do just maybe a half a teaspoon of Worcestershire. I just feel like it gives beef a really good flavor. I lied. Maybe a couple more splashes. And then I'm going to heat up my pan. I'm actually not going to cook this right away. I'm going to let those flavors sit for a second while I prep the next part of our brunch. Usually this is something I can cook pretty quickly because I have a plan and I just start throwing everything into the pot. But for the sake of the video, I want to show you what I'm doing in case you want to make something like this. All right, I'm going to let that sit. Looks about like that. Spices are pretty distributed. I'm going to turn the heat on my pan. So next I'm going to work on the flatbread. There's no recipe for this. I made this up in my head, but probably because I've seen enough people making some kind of fry bread that I decided I like that idea. And so I just made it my own. So into this bowl, I'm going to add probably 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. I do have sourdough starter just living in the back here, all bubbly and beautiful. But for this one, I don't know if you can see those bubbles. I'm so proud. It's about a month old, and I did a wild caught starter by myself. I've done it like a million times. But for today, we're going to use some active dry yeast. I taped it. I just taped it together because the bag was ripping. I'm going to get out 2 teaspoons of that. Roughly. There's no exact measurements. Put that aside. I don't know if this step is necessary, but I learned it from my grandma. She always put a pinch of sugar in it, just a literal pinch of sugar with the yeast. She always said it would help wake it up and give it something to eat. So I added a pinch, not even maybe a quarter teaspoon or less. So there's a literal pinch in there. I'm going to add some water from my Berkey. I don't have a measurement. I just kind of feel how much I need. I'm going to add some water from my Berkey and then the flour from the Nutri-Mill once this blooms. And then we'll just start frying up the bread. So we'll have the beef, the fried bread, and then some eggs on the side. So let me grab some water. I don't know, there might be a cup and a half of water, and the yeast is in there, and I'm just going to let that sit and do its thing. Even though I am using milled wheat for this, for my countertop, I'm just going to use some organic flour from Costco. I'm just going to use some organic flour from Costco to put on the countertop so I can roll this dough out a little bit. Okay, I just added some parchment paper to the counter. I'm going to grab my yeast water mixture with that pinch of sugar. It actually just made a cloud that burst on the top. That tells me it's completely ready. And I'm just going to start adding, I usually add my salt first. People do it different, but I usually add my salt first. I never know how much to tell people to add. I start with like 2 teaspoons because I usually make enough dough that warrants 2 teaspoons of salt. I have hard red wheat in here. Even though I just did that Azure Standard haul and I have some hard white, I'm going to use hard red because I didn't feel like opening the bag of white. And I'm so used to the taste of the hard red, doesn't matter to me. All right, so we're going to add some of that flour, mix it around. That's not nearly enough yet, but I just want to kind of make a sludge and get all that salt distributed through this. And then I'll add enough to form it into a dough. Are y'all milling mamas out there? Like, and I don't mean you have to be a mother, but I mean, like, are y'all milling your own wheat? So I have had my Nutrimill since my kids were little, probably for about 15 years. I saw somebody using one the other day on YouTube, and I thought the design has not changed. I thought it would be like a completely different looking mill, but this one is 15 years old, y'all, or more. And I'm still using it. Like I said, this is not if you're just joining me, this is not a baked bread recipe. This is just me making like a fry bread. And when I say fry bread, I say fry loosely because I'm not using a ton of oils to cook with. And when I do cook with it, I either am using 3 types of oil. I'm either using ghee or pure tallow or avocado oil. So those are the oils that I use when I'm cooking. If the salt measurement is bothering you, here's what I do. It might seem gross, but as it starts to come together, I will take a piece of the dough and put a piece on my tongue to feel it for the salt content in it. And somebody said if it tastes like the sea, then you probably have the right ratio. And so I've always stuck to that. I just kind of feel it on my tongue. I know the taste now that I'm looking for. I might need to mill a little more wheat. I don't think I did quite enough. That's the thing about cooking with no recipe. It really is trial and error. You're just feeling your way through this whole thing. So here's what it's looking like so far. And I'm going to mill a little bit more, but I'm also going to let it rest because I've noticed sometimes when it rests, it will start to absorb that water. And so I don't need nearly as much as I think I need to finish it off. So I'm going to let that rest for a minute. And then I'll add a little bit more as it absorbs the water. I'll know exactly how much more I need to add. You can already see like the gluten bonds forming from the yeast. It's getting kind of stretchy as I work with it. All right, I'm gonna let this rest for a second. I'm gonna mill a little bit more and then add it to that in just a second. And then I'm actually gonna prep the eggs because I want everything to be hot and served close to the same time. The eggs are usually the last because nobody wants to eat cold eggs. Okay, while that bread is resting and waiting for the flour to go in, I'm just going to go ahead and take the beef that we made earlier. It's been sitting and absorbing some of the spices. I don't want it to sit too long. I'm going to start forming it into patties and putting it on the pan so that way I can get it ready and have it cooking simultaneously with the dough. So here we go. The patties are dependent on your size that you prefer to eat. Look at that herbs in there, y'all. I hope that didn't gross you out, like seeing this on my hand, but seriously, it looks good. It smells delicious. And this is just breakfast beef. It's what I call breakfast beef for our family. Looks like hamburgers. Tastes a little bit like sausage. Perfectly delicious. You can make them larger or smaller depending on how big your people are. I'm feeding grown men up in here, so it can't be too tiny. I don't measure. I don't try to make everything uniform. I just try to get these patties pressed out and put in the fire. That's the truth of it. This is probably why I can't have my own cooking show. Not that I would ever want to, because that would be really stressful for me, unless somebody did all the dishes and the cleanup at the end. But I just try to get good food on the table with as little fuss as possible in a way that works for me and my lifestyle. And that's the freedom that you have. You don't have to do it the way you see somebody else do it. You don't have to garden the way you see somebody else garden. You don't have to diet the way you see somebody else diet. Do what works for you and what God has given you. Use what you have and make it work. All right, so it looks like we're probably going to have like a dozen patties. I'm just going by feel. I do try to make sure the middles are pressed down a little bit so that middle cooks as well. It'll shrink up. So we have 6, 7, 8. Nope, we might only end up with 10. And that works. 9, 10. And I think I'm going to borrow from some friends. Sharing is caring, so I need some of your beef. Why do I crack myself up? I don't even need other people to laugh at my jokes. I'm over here laughing at myself. Okay, so that's all done. This little one's going to be the taster. So this is what these herbed beef patties look like. And I'm just going to start the frying process. I will typically start on the bread because I'm done handling raw meat. So I scrub my nails and my hands, and then I can start rolling out the dough. I am a little nervous, Nelly, about cross-contamination. So I spray my nails and hands with a little bit of peroxide finished with alcohol. That's because my mom made me do that growing up. I don't know if all that's necessary, but it's what I do in the kitchen. So I always keep some kitchen peroxide and a bottle of alcohol, which also I use the alcohol to help with my dishes at the end. So if I make a rinse cycle recipe, a rinse aid, then I'll use a little bit of that alcohol with vinegar to help make the dishes sparkle. All right. Burgers are still cooking. I just checked on them. This has rested. Just going to cut off a little piece. There's one. Just roll out a quick shape. Doesn't matter if it's a circle, if it's oblong. Doesn't matter what shape it is. Just roll out your flatbread. I use a little ghee. Things ready. I'm just going to throw that first piece of bread in. I don't think it's hot enough. And I'll put the lid on it for just a second to try to trap some of that steam to help it cook. Dry, or you can add more butter just to cut down on the amount of fat I'm using because I want to finish it with a little butter. I just cook it in a relatively dry pan. All right, I just finished scrubbing my pan with a damp cloth to get the burger bits out, and then some salt that helped break it all up. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of avocado oil in. I like to use my hand first. I'm going to let it I do the front, the sides, the back, the whole thing. Just gonna let that soak in. Take a little bit off. But I'm gonna leave it on the stove ready to go for the next time. And then the eye is still warm, so it'll warm the pan and help it absorb that oil. But don't leave any standing water on your pan, whatever you do. You just want to keep seasoning it in between cooking. And then put it on that warm eye, let it sit for a little bit and absorb that oil. And then before you cook, you can wipe off that excess oil. Just a few scrambled eggs, not too many, maybe like 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 4 of us, so roughly 2 eggs per person. Every 2 weeks I'll buy 2 of these, 2 to 3 of those. And then that lasts us for half the month. And then I go back for a refill. Okay, a little bit of half and half. Just a little bit. Don't know why. Don't have the science behind it. That's just how we made them growing up. Still making them that way to this day. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then lastly, y'all, I got an Azure haul about 2 days ago. And so I have yet to process this cheese. So I need to cut a piece off. It's been sealed the entire time, but once I cut into it, I'm going to have to process it and put some in the freezer. I do have a food processor, so I can grate it, put it in Ziplocs, freeze it, pull out portions that I need. But for today, we're going to slice a piece off of this bad boy. Has a pretty good flavor. Pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it's not the best I've ever had, but it is really good and it'll work well in this recipe. This is just the organic raw milk white cheddar grass fed. Everything I like about a cheese. So I'm pleased with this purchase. It's gonna make some good scrambled eggs. I'm probably only gonna put about an ounce, maybe less than an ounce in these eggs. Scramble them up. My family doesn't love a lot of cheese in their eggs. They just like a little taste. They like to know it's in there. They just don't want it to taste like cheese. So I'm just going to do a little bit. I don't salt the eggs when I cook them. I usually will put a little bit of ghee in the pan and then put the salt in the pan with the ghee because I find when I heat the salt in the oil, it has a richer flavor. Try that. That's a little pro tip. Usually this type of breakfast that I'm making, we have once or twice a week. Otherwise, it is leftovers, leftover pot roast, leftover hamburgers, leftover whatever, and they will come find what they want and eat it. There have been days where they come in and eat leftover pasta from the night before with whatever sauce I had for it. So this is not an everyday thing. And the truth is, this flatbread is amazing because we do have leftover pot roast. And so tonight when I serve dinner, I'll have some of this left. And my husband will use it to grab up the pot roast and dip it into the au jus sauce or whatever gravy I make. So this flatbread is going to do double duty today for breakfast as well as for dinner. All right, time to add some salt to the pan for the eggs. Let that salt cook for a minute. It will actually have a richer, deeper flavor if you let your salt heat up in the pan with the oil. Get these scrambled eggs moved around a little bit, turn the heat off, and just let that residual heat continue to cook the eggs. Then your eggs won't be all hard and dry and look like sand. Is that the technical term for dry eggs? I don't know. But I have cooked some sandy eggs in my lifetime, and I've learned you just got to move that liquid around, kind of fold it. Don't be harsh with it. Don't beat it up like you're mad at it. Just kind of move it around in the pan. See how fluffy they're turning out? And then very shortly I'm going to cut the heat and just let it finish cooking. Now I have an electric stove, so when you have to cut your heat might be different depending on if you're cooking with gas or electric. I just turned the heat off and I'm just going to let it keep cooking because there's enough heat left on the stove top to finish these eggs. So that's it, y'all. We are about to sit down to brunch. We are having some scrambled eggs with a little bit of raw cheddar cheese, some flatbread, which you can use for anything. If you want it savory, add a little bit of garlic and butter. If you want it, have it sweet, pour a little bit of honey on it. Or my favorite way to have it is with a little bit of the cream cheese and some strawberry jam. Just smear a little bit of that on. Oh my gosh, with a cup of coffee, that is such a good breakfast. And then over here we have our burgers. I don't know if you can see them. They've been in the oven warming. Dang, that plate is hot. Anyways, I just added some garden fresh herbs to these, some sage, oregano, and thyme. Less oregano, but more sage and thyme, so they have sort of a breakfast sausage taste because I prefer beef to actual pork sausage for some reason. I just like it, the flavor and the taste. So that's our breakfast. I'm about to call the troops down to eat, and we are done. And look, y'all, it only took us 2,000 hours because I was filming, and my family is starving, and they have been to the kitchen 500 times. And so I got to call them before there's a revolt. So that's it. That's breakfast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this type of video, just let me know. I'll try to do another one. I really enjoyed this long form content, probably more than short form for some reason. I felt like I was hanging out with people. So it was kind of nice to be able to prepare a meal for you and show you the weird stuff that we eat for breakfast. Weird, but whole foods and delicious. And this would be more of a brunch style breakfast because ain't nobody got time to make this every single day. Tomorrow I'll probably wrap one of these up in that and go on because it's already prepared. But if you can cook once a week, this might be an option for you. All right, let me know what you'd like to see next. If you'd like to see what we eat for dinner, whole foods. I don't mean whole food plant-based. I just mean whole natural foods that God made. Then I will show you that. As you know, I'm on a journey to health and living my best life in Christ, not to be obsessed with my weight or my size, but to be obsessed with Jesus and to live healthfully so that I can carry out the mission of spreading the gospel. That's my goal in life. What's yours? All right. Comment, let me know what you want to see next and if you like this type of content, and I'll see if I can make you another one. Catch y'all in the next video. Bye. Okay, perfect. This is my one and only client that I really worry about.